Well, hello again, everyone, and welcome to our latest webcast that we're bringing you from Travel Weekly as part of our Roadmap to Recovery series. And I'm joined today by Mark Swords, the owner of Swords Travel, by Joe Ponte, the Chief Executive of Hotelplan, which of course includes Santa's Lapland, Ingham's and Explore, and back again by popular demand, Gemma Antrobus is the owner of Haslemere Travel and also the chair of ATO Agents. So morning, everyone. Thank you for joining me. We're talking just after the weekend where we had yet another, let's say, unexpected announcement, which has caused, another hurdle for you all. Gemma, I'm going to start with you because I know you went straight on to BBC News to talk about it, and you were saying, it was just getting back on our feet, and then this happened. So tell me your reaction.
Flabbergasted, I think. And I think especially as we'd had this, Grant Chaps had done an interview with The Telegraph, hadn't he? And it now appears he did this on Wednesday, but we didn't hear about it till Friday. I mean, what difference 2 days makes, I have no idea. But it felt like a 24-hour turnaround in message from the government. So we'd ended our weeks, it had been challenging. They're talking to clients about what they now needed to do on their return. For me, I'd been helping. The thing I said I'd never do was book PCR tests for clients. I'd been helping clients book. Can you hear me? Am I back in?
Yes, we just lost you for a second, but you're fine.
Sorry. Mainly because of that fear of what if I get it wrong? Now this is back in. We've got used to not having these things. So helping clients with PCR tests, and it just suddenly felt like, their timing is always shocking, isn't it? It's never great. And Saturday night, it was like the kick in the guts. So, if we look at this pragmatically, clients took these tests all the way up to the 4th of October. So those that travelled in the summer and well into autumn did exactly the same as travellers are now expected to do. So it's not new. We know the drill. We know where to find these tests. We know where to give the information to these clients. And I think what I was sort of trying to say on the BBC was that, we have been there before, but the thing that is missing for all of us is we can do this. We are beyond resilient, aren't we? We can, flip this around. We can service our clients, provide them with the right information. But the thing that is missing, that was in place when clients had to do this before, was the support from the government financially. And I think that was my big message, was that, we'll do this, we'll get through it. It will knock clients' confidence. It won't mean everyone wants to cancel, because they're not. But what it will do is it will put us all in a bit of a squeaky situation looking at the future, because we've obviously started to plan again, and now those things could change. And that was the bit that would really, really frustrated me, was the lack of regard. We get the fact that we need to keep everyone safe, and nobody questions that, but it's like they gave us half a message. This is what we have to do, but there was nothing about any consideration from the industry apart from saying, we know it's going to be difficult. No shit, but there was there's just no consideration for the sort of financial implications that it will have. And that was really,
well, look, we'll definitely come on to talk about that support that's needed. Mark, Gemma talked there about half a message, and of course we got half a message last weekend as well, didn't we? Because we were told about the testing coming back in, but not from when. And so you were scrabbling around on the Saturday, didn't know till the Sunday night when it was actually coming in. So this was last week's announcement. So it's been 2 weekends on the trot that you've kind of been blindsided.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest problems. I think there's no clear line of communication. So obviously, Grant Chaps either announces it on Twitter, it comes out on BBC News, you hear it from Paul Charles, you hear it from all different channels. You're like, well, actually, there should be a direct line to the travel industry telling us this before this happens, because we need to be able to plan at the end of the day. And I just think it's so frustrating. This weekend has been a little bit easier, but I think for us in our own mindset, we were thinking, okay, well, we had last weekend. Now we've got another 3 weeks, hopefully, just to relax and get clients away and just keep going as normal. But you can never relax, because it just seems like there's one announcement after another, and it comes totally unexpectedly. And I think you start to hear things on the grapevine just before it comes out. But I think from a client's point of view, they're sort of becoming more resilient as well, like us, because they've become to expect it. I mean, a client emailed me this morning and said, to be honest with you, I've heard it already. I've seen this, I've seen that. And we know it's fine. We'll just take the test, whatever. So I think people are becoming more resilient, but we shouldn't have to be that resilient, because it gets to the point where it's just unworkable.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, we'll come back to talk about customers. Let's just bring Joe in though, because slightly different perspective for you, Joe. I want to know about your weekend because, of course, you had lots of clients away in Lapland who will suddenly have realised they needed to have a test before coming back.
Correct. Yeah. So we've got thousands up in Lapland at the moment. Before I get into that, I just want to completely agree with Mark and Gemma's comments about the way that this has gone down over the weekend. To do it on a Saturday night is just the absolute toughest time for our industry to be able to respond. Things are shut. We've got customers calling us saying what's happened. We had customers departing at 7 a.m. the next day. So it's very challenging for us to really respond as well as we could. Just 5 hours notice. If they have to do it on a Saturday, give us 5 hours notice so we can get things lined up and be ready to go. As Mark said, there's got to be a way they can engage more effectively with the travel industry. Now, the thing for us, though, is that this is kind of what tour operating is all about. Even before COVID, it was dealing with ash clouds, too much snow, not enough snow. Post-COVID, it's just dealing with these. So we have pretty strong processes involved. Within 30 minutes of that first BBC blast, my executive team were on a call. Within half an hour of that, we had messages out to all customers departing this coming week. The challenge was then to find testing up in Finland. Yesterday's a Sunday, today's a public holiday in Finland. But regardless of that, by mid-morning yesterday, we'd been able to secure 2-hour turnaround tests that we will fund for all of our customers who are either in market or who are departing today, tomorrow, or departed yesterday, because we told everyone, don't worry, this is what we do, we'll sort it out. So they've all gone up. They're very expensive up there. So I want to talk about what people have to do going forward. They're about 100 euros a pop compared to 30 euros you can get your antigen test here. But we've got all of that in place for our customers. And so all our customers returning from Tuesday will be able to get a test that we'll take care of, and they'll be able to get back absolutely fine. It's similar to what some of the other guys have said, is we have not seen a massive run for cancellations. As Gemma said, this is the way people took a holiday in the summer. I took my family to Spain exactly under these guidelines, and it went smoothly. We just need to make sure that people have the testing sorted out well in advance of their trip. And the one bit of confusion that we've had with some customers is when they hear antigen, they think the antigen test they can do might just be the NHS one for free. We need to remind people that is absolutely not the case. That will not work. It needs to be official and verified.
So let's just be clear, they can't take one of those free NHS kits with them on holiday. They have to get it done officially, and they have to do it on a video, perhaps.
Well, not necessarily a video. There's one that we've got which is not video. It's the one I did when I was in Spain. But if customers go to our website or just Google it, we've got a whole list that are available for it's around £30. You do it in your hotel room. You just register while you're there. It uploads and you get your certificate back within half an hour. So it's super easy to do. That's one of the good things about this going on for so long, is the testing has become much easier. And as Mark said, people are getting more used to doing it. And what we found is our customers just want to travel. That was the other disappointing thing about this. We've got thousands of people on this magical Santa experience in Finland with their little kids about to meet Santa. And all of a sudden you've got parents reading these BBC things late on a Saturday night when we haven't had a chance to talk to them yet. It's just like we're talking about British people holidaying within the regulations the government set, and they just get thrown a curveball on a Saturday night without us being able to work with them in advance to figure out exactly what we're going to do.
Yeah, it must have been, it must have been really, I mean, I know you've sorted it now, but for a few hours, that must have been pretty, scary, frightening, ruining the holiday. It's only a couple of days holiday normally, isn't it, Lapland?
It is, Lucy. But I'm sure many people in my role would say this. I feel I've got one of the best teams in the business, and I just know that we're going to pull together and sort this stuff out. Like we did it all through the first wave of coronavirus, and all through the summer. We've got a ski season about to start. And the good thing is for us, and that's why people book with the tour operator, right? We've got staff on the ground in Finland who are there to help should anything happen. I've got staff all over Europe. I've got the best team here in London to be able to react to these things. So we take a responsibility to make sure we can smoothen things out no matter how choppy they get. Well,
hopefully people will be reminded of that, as you say. Just before we move on to the cost for the public, that's a big cost for you, Joe, for, you're saying they're £100 a pop or 100 euros a pop. So that's quite a big fit to stomach, isn't it, for like all those thousands of customers over 3 or 4 days?
Yeah, it is. It certainly is, Lucy. But we feel like if a customer didn't know in advance of going, and this has been thrust upon them, and they don't know how to do it, we just want to make sure that everyone gets tested and it happens smoothly, and we get people back safely. It's also a long-term game for us. We want people to understand that when things go a little bit south, that we will be there to look after them. And that's why we're doing this, is as I understand it, our competitors are doing it, and as they should as well. That's why you book with a tour operator, because you've got 100 people in London and people all over the destinations ready to take this action if it needs to. But to be clear, we're covering it for people who are departing up until tomorrow, because the tests that you can purchase, our customers should be right now purchasing them, because a 24-hour delivery, they'll have them in their hands on Tuesday for those Wednesday departures.
Okay, all right, thank you, Joe. Well done for such a quick response. Gemma, let's talk about the cost then. Is the cost, I mean, you said just in your first bit there that, it will knock consumer confidence a little bit. Is the cost a deterrent, or is it more that people are worried they might get stranded overseas if they were to test positive and then have to isolate?
I think from the consumer confidence point of view, where I come from is it's more about those booking right now. December is not traditionally a hugely busy month for us anyway in terms of booking travel. So if we're looking at a traditional year, we wouldn't be, booking loads and certainly not in the speed that we have been in the last sort of 6 weeks. But what it's done is it's kind of those people that were inquiring, it's made them go, okay, let's leave this till after Christmas. Whereas beforehand, I think they would have quite confidently booked beforehand. So that's the confidence that we need to get back. In terms of travellers, what I found, and I think as Mark has echoed as well, and also Joe, was that those clients that are booked, many of them booked when these were in place. Many of them have travelled already. And you can't, just because you've got to now take a PCR test, as I say to everyone, it's not a reason to cancel your holiday and you're not going to get your money back. People have been waiting for some of these trips for such a long time. Those Lapland ones that you're talking about, they would have, should have probably taken place, many of them last year. The kids are getting older, you worry how long they're going to believe in Santa.
What? What?
No worry. I don't know what you're talking about, Gemma.
Oh, what? No, sorry. Yes. So I think the confidence is in two different ways. The testing price, they've come down dramatically. Many of us have got discount codes through consortia or the associations that we belong to. So actually the cost of doing the postal tests is not huge. The cost of taking these very rapid tests is really high, but that's a consumer's choice of how quickly they want to get those PCR tests results back when they return. Now, previously, and maybe this was something that wasn't really mentioned before, when people were taking PCR tests, it was on day 2 that they came back. They weren't taking them as soon as they got off the aeroplane. So, it's now more of a personal choice whether you choose to take them as soon as you get off the aircraft. I've said to clients of mine that have got the postal tests, get off the aircraft, take the test in the loo or in the car and pop it either in the post box or to the drop box on your way back from the airport. It'll be picked up that same day. So, there are ways of making this quicker.
Yeah.
The whole being stranded in resort thing is another conversation to have, but I can only speak with my clients. I speak from my own experience, and with all the departures that we had over the summer and into up to the 4th of October when this went away, we didn't have anybody test positive or even have a lateral flow misdiagnosed test or false positive. So I can only speak from that experience. So we haven't had to go through it, but of course it's a worry. But if we don't know, and we've always said this, or I've always said this, we don't know this is ever going to go away, this testing. It went away for a bit, it's come back in. It could go away for a year and come back in. We don't know that. It's something that we have to get used to, the fact that it's going to be in place. We can't say it will definitely ever go away. And I just think, consumers are a little bit more realistic about it now.
And now you've started, sorting out tests. I know you said you didn't really want to do that, but now you've started. Do you think that's something you'll end up sticking to?
I don't think so. I mean, this was particularly elderly clients who using a credit card online and that kind of thing, they were very uncertain about. So I talked them through the process.
Okay.
Many of our clients who are of a younger demographic are more than happy to do things online and are used to the testing. But there are certain clients who just are a little bit more nervous because they don't use the internet in the way that others do. However, you get other, clients of an elder generation who are quite happy. Yeah. So I think it is that it's still that hand holding, isn't it? It's still that literally leading them to, apart from packing their cases, it's all those steps to get them to, the airport and on that plane.
I'm sure, Gemma, knowing you would pack their case if you really had to. But let's hope it doesn't come to that. Mark, there are calls now for quite a lot of calls for this free day 2 tests. Certainly for this review period until December the 18th. Is that something you support?
Yeah, I think there needs to be some kind of, I'm not saying that the government should necessarily subsidise it, but I think it should be done at cost. I think there's so many companies out there that are making a real profit out of the PCR testing, the antigen testing. And like Gemma said, if you want an express service, then you're going to have to pay for that express service because somebody's obviously having to facilitate that. But I do think there should be some, I suppose, across the board pricing that people have to stick to, and there should be a cap on that. So if you look at other countries like the UAE, if in the US, it's a lot easier. So I think there needs to be something in line with that that makes it easier for customers, but also a direction. Because if you go to the government website at the moment, there's so many companies on there. Half these companies don't exist. Half the testing costs you go to aren't even available. So I think there just needs to be clarity and some clear direction of where customers should go for testing, and to make it easy for them and get a realistic return time on it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And just before we move on from you, Mark, I know Gemma said that December isn't traditionally that busy, but I guess for ski bookings, and we'll come on to Joe as well, but there was quite a headache during the week, wasn't there, around Switzerland and whether you could go to Switzerland. Then they lifted their their regulations during the week. I mean, has that been difficult for you to navigate? Because I'm sure some people must have cancelled Switzerland only to now be able to go.
This has probably been the biggest headache. This and Spain have been our two biggest challenges over the last 7 to 10 days. Switzerland, we had all the ski departures going over to France. So obviously then we got told 10-day quarantine. For 3 days, there was no clarification on whether you could actually cross the border or whether it was allowed. So that was confusing. And you feel a bit embarrassed because we're supposed to be the experts giving clients advice, but actually we can't give them the confident advice because some of the tour operators don't even know until they get it from the governments out there. So that was quite a big problem. And then obviously we spent all week changing flights, moving flights, looking at regulations for then the quarantine to then be dropped. And you're like, well, we've just gone through all that after 4 days, but then we've got to go through it all again. And the picture is, so we've had some clients on BA flights, they've all been cancelled, but now they've actually come back on again. So BA have reinstated these flights this morning, but cancelled the client's original flight. So it's just so complicated, you're having to redo it all and go through that process just for the sake of nothing.
Are people wanting to now go back to Switzerland if they had originally booked that? Or so you're having to, they're not just saying, oh, I'll stick with France now.
Some people are. I think people are a bit undecided, to be honest with you. And I think some people will just cancel it altogether, whereas some people are, we still really want that ski holiday. I think a lot of people will stick with France, to be honest with you, because it's so much easier. But yeah, who knows? You just can't predict, can you, what's going to happen next? That's the problem.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting comment that you say you feel embarrassed. That's the last thing you as experts want to be feeling, because you know throughout this you've been fantastic, but if you're not given the information, that must be so hard. Joe, running a ski, I know we've moved on from Lapland, but you've got a massive ski program. Tell us about the headache for you.
Yeah, I mean, look, the bookings up until the Austria lockdown were just continually, over the last couple of months in particular, well above 2 years ago booking rates. Everyone getting really excited for ski season. Obviously, the Austria lockdown caused some headaches, and we're hoping that will be lifted on the 12th, but we'll play that as it comes, as we have to with everything else. Switzerland is challenging. France, there's some challenges around daily testing for teenagers. There's some challenges in Italy. So the reality is that there are challenges across the board. And so as a business, we're just doing our very best to stay atop of all of those challenges and communicating as much with our customers. As I said before, we're lucky that I've got senior country managers on the ground in all of these destinations who can work with local authorities to do their best to understand the different regulations. But the reality is this is the bumpy season that we're going to follow. It's similar to what I said about our Santa bookings. What I've learned about skiers since I've been in this role is that skiers absolutely love to ski. I think I've said that to you before, Lucy. And come hell or high water, if they can get away, they're going to go skiing. And so we haven't seen people cancelling when destinations they can go to. And the one thing that we know is that it is going to continue to be a bumpy season, particularly the first 2 to 3 weeks. Once we get those first 3 departures and have them back, we'll have a better understanding how it's all going to work, and we'll be able to hopefully glide into the second half of the season. But it's as Mark said, there are going to be unknowns, and it's just about being ready to deal with them as best as we can. That's all we can do as a responsible tour operator.
Yeah. All right. Well, it does sound like the three of you are being very resilient, and it's not been too awful. But there are lots of predictions around social media that this latest change to the rules on international travel will actually be quite serious for some, and it could lead to more job losses and potential failures. Gemma, I know you have lots of members in ATO agents. Do you, I know you're okay, but are there some of your colleagues that you think this will really impact?
I think for many people, a lot of it's just the mental turmoil, and sometimes it's that drive to, can I keep going? It's sometimes less about the pennies coming in. It's more about have I got it in me to keep fighting for this? Because we have been through so much. And, it's, for companies that have large teams and have more support around you, it's wonderful because you get to share that burden, share that load. But for when you are practically a one-man band, or you have a very small team, and it's been you solely fighting for the last nearly 2 years, I think that's the thing that it's like a bit like having PTSD, and that's not to downplay, proper PTSD, but it's like the trauma, reignites, and as soon as something comes back in, you're automatically, I know I am, taken back to March 2020 when it was all so overwhelming and you had so little information and questions coming at you from all angles. So I think the fight that we have now is just as much about the mental fight as it is about the financial fight. Yeah. And I think there will be people that just say enough is enough. And if this is the next 3 weeks, okay. But if this goes on into Q1,
so many people going, I'm done. This is it. This is the last straw. I'm done with this now. And then people saying, we were already on our knees. This is going to kill us off. I've had it. Yeah. And I've seen lots of messages like that. And that's really, it's so upsetting.
It's heartbreaking, especially because we've come so far. And we were just starting to see that recovery, weren't we? We were just starting, we were inundated with bookings and inquiries and really great stuff. And then it's not even as if that's just petered off naturally and you've gone, okay, well, people are buying Christmas presents now rather than holidays. It's this kind of like, this hammer that's come from the government with absolutely no regard for the industry at all. And I just don't know what they're thinking. They're people that think they can run a country, yet they expect us to run a business without any, money or any guidance or, any kind of assurance for the future. And the problem is it's all speculation. It could come to 3 weeks time, a bit like, Switzerland lifting the 10-day quarantine. This could all go away as quickly as it came.
And how do you, I mean, I know you haven't got a crystal ball, but obviously this review is December the 18th. Have you got any, I suppose you're in the dark as anybody else, whether you think that will
at the moment, if you look at what the scientists are saying, this new variant is not as serious as was originally thought. We're not seeing the huge death rates from it. So if you look at what the scientists are saying, they're sort of saying, actually, it's another variant. We also have to understand that we're going to have another variant in a few months' time, and one after that, and one after, for the rest of our lives. There's a new flu variant every year. Everyone gets a flu booster jab, or those that need them do. This is something we have to live with. And if the impact of a new variant every time one comes in is this, that's not sustainable for an industry, no matter what time of year it is. Because if it's not at ski season, it will be at peak holiday season in the summer. And it will affect every different style of specialist travel. So, we've got to get past this knee-jerk reaction where something happens with a new variant and suddenly it massively affects this industry with no financial support coming from the government to get us through that.
Particularly galling, Mark, when you consider that you can get on a plane or go to some of these countries where the rates are lower. And yet still here, we can walk into a really busy pub. I've been on a train this morning. There wasn't a spare seat and there were people standing. I mean, it's rammed. So it's hard to take, isn't it? We seem to always be the ones that are, the victims in this, rather than when there's other stuff that you're still allowed to do.
I think it's so frustrating. I mean, I was telling you, Lucy, before we started, I went to Westfield yesterday. And I'm not joking, 50% of the people in Westfield didn't have masks on. We're probably one of the most compliant industries, and we're doing everything by the book to make sure our clients can go abroad, yet we're the one that's probably been penalised the most. And I'm like, if you're gonna put something in place, you need to enforce it and you need to make sure the rules are followed. But they're just not being followed at the moment. And it is so frustrating. I don't know. How do you enforce it? I feel sorry for the police having to enforce it because it just causes more problems. It's a bit of a catch-22, but I think when you go into an airport, or if you're on an airline or whatever, that you've got to have your mask on, and you don't get a 50% compliance there. So it's very different, and it's just a bit frustrating, I suppose. That's the main.
Yeah. And to Gemma's point about the lack of support, because I know we're coming to time really, but are we now just back to those calls yet again for sector specific support? we had, as Gemma said, last time we still had furlough in place, we had some grants. So, what are you looking for now, Mark?
I think exactly that, to support the team while this is going on, while there's all this alarm and distress in the industry and nobody's got confidence. We need something to make people want to stay in the travel industry. There's a massive issue around recruitment at the moment that nobody can get good people into the industry. But there's no surprise, because why would you want to be in an industry that's so volatile and you've got no job security? People want financial security at the end of the day, and there's not that in the industry at the moment. We were quite lucky just before everything restarted. I think it was in October time. We got quite a big grant from our local council, but we had to push and push and push. And I've seen that apps have been putting out reminders this week. Make sure you go to your local councils for grants. And I think it's so important because there are grants there. And I was talking to one of the leaders of Merton Council at an event the other day, and they were saying, actually, a lot of these industries that are entitled to these grants aren't actually applying for them. So as much as we need to push for support, we also need to keep digging and fighting and making sure that we're getting exactly what we're entitled to as well.
Yeah, and I mean, same question to both of you. What would you like to see from the government, Joe?
Yeah, it's similar to what Mark says. It's just what we need. I mean, as an industry, we just haven't had the chance to get the recovery that many other industries have had, and it's almost like it's been ignored. We need some sector-specific support to allow these businesses to continue. Now, the worst thing is the mental health concerns that Gemma talks about for some people, small business owners. We need to relieve some of that by offering taking away some of that financial burden in a time when they just simply cannot operate. It's just, it has to happen. It has to happen quickly.
Yeah, and the point Mark made about the loss of talent from the sector. Yes. I mean, we're reporting that. Everyone I speak to says the same. They're struggling. I mean, is that something that's affecting your business? Because you need some real specialists in your business.
Yeah, we had a period where we found it really tough. We've had a bit more success of late, but particularly in roles that are transferable to other industries, like technical roles, finance roles. These are the ones that are proving really tough. Why would I be, as a junior developer coming to work in the travel industry, when I can potentially get paid more doing something in an industry that's really safe? So what we've had to do is completely review our benefits and reward package to make sure that it's attractive not only to people in travel businesses, but across broader industries to make sure we do our best to attract people.
Okay, very interesting. And Gemma, we'll give you the final word. What would you like to see from government?
Financial support. That's all it comes down to, and a consideration of how they communicate. Yeah. Because I think that's what we all ask, is that we at least are able to give a couple of hours ahead of our clients, because many of them are finding out the information exactly at the same time as we are. Yeah. And it does make us look really unprofessional if we can't go back to them with information. But as we've learned, it's going to come out on Twitter. It's going to be leaked through some kind of press article before any of us in the industry know. But they would be my two things. Are we going to get them? I don't think we are. I really don't, because they've given us no consideration so far. So, we just have to do what we do best, hope that this is only a temporary measure, and that in the next 3 weeks that this new variant is proved to be less virulent than some of the others, and that those that come after it are the same.
Yeah. And let's finish on a good note, Gemma, because I know you finished your BBC interview saying, look, there are still only 11 countries on the red list. So there are lots of places to travel. I know lots of other countries have different entry requirements, but that's what you guys can help with. So people can still travel, can't they?
People can still travel, and the only cancellation that I've had is one gentleman flying down to South Africa for Christmas, and that's because it is a red list country, and I completely understand. All of my other clients who are traveling to some wonderful destinations for Christmas, and either hot or cold, long or near to home, are all still going and all still want to go. And that's because as an industry, we do what we do best, provide them with the right information, and they will go and have an amazing time. And if something happens, we'll deal with it when it happens. But right now, I think the main thing is, as Joe and Mark have said, clients do still want to travel.
All right. Well, let's leave it on that high note. Well done, all of you. I take my hat off. I saw it all coming in on Saturday afternoon. I sent a few messages. I felt so sorry for you all having to go through that again. But as you've all said here, it's what you do brilliantly. And I hope the public really do, recognise that and keep booking with agents and keep booking with tour operators. So thank you to Mark from Swords Travel, to Joe from Hotelplan, and to Gemma from Haslemere Travel. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Lucy.